I think effective enforcement of our gun laws, focusing on criminals and dangerous people, mentally ill people that have been where we have the legal ability to do so, can reduce violence in our communities and improve public safety.
That was Attorney General Jeff Sessions earlier today discussing how he believes senseless tragedies like this mass shooting in South Florida can be avoided. While both sides agree something has to be done, the divide is over what that looks like. Enforcement of the nation's gun laws, or reforming them entirely, or something that's not even related to the law. Mark Bogen is vice mayor for Broward County, and John Iannarelli is a retired FBI special agent. Welcome to you both, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Mark, I want to ask you first, how are folks doing down there tonight?
Well, it's been tough. First of all, on behalf of the Broward County Commission, we'd like to express our condolences and prayers for the families and victims of this tragedy. It's been really hard on everybody. It's just been an incredible, horrible experience. But what is really appalling, and to be honest with you, Shannon, is that our governor of the state of Florida and several other elected officials from around the state come down here to express their grief, to express their outrage, but then they leave and they support the same laws that allow a teenager to go and buy an assault weapon. So it's just really appalling that people come down here, whether it's a governor or a state senator, and show their, on one hand, show their condolences and their sympathy for what happened, and on the other hand, they support laws that allow teenagers to buy assault weapons. And when you realize that in the past 8 weeks, less than 8 weeks, Shannon, there's been 18 school shootings in the United States. It just, at some point, when does it stop? When will elected officials in our state government make the proper laws to stop this?
I mean, this absolutely is a horrific situation that happened yesterday, but it's important, if we're going to have a factual conversation here, that the Washington Post, I believe, is one of the outlets that fact-checked the 18 shootings, and they said the number is not accurate. So that can be debated. What happened yesterday cannot be debated. I want to play a little bit of what a lawyer for the family where the shooter had been staying, a little bit of what this lawyer had to say, and then we'll get some reaction from both of you.
Sure.
There's a lot of 19-year-olds out here. This is a rural part of the county. This is where people hunt, where people go shooting. There's a lot of 18-year-olds with firearms. This is not about firearms. This is about something went seriously wrong with this kid, and nobody can explain it right now.
But, John, what about the rest of this equation? The fact that he was known to have problems, that he seemingly, you know, by some reports that he lied on background check forms in order to get these guns. I mean, there were clearly things that don't add up that led to what happened yesterday. So what do we do?
Well, the first thing we do is there's got to be some common sense. And I hear what Mark's saying. Obviously, you want to have laws in place to protect you. But having spent my life in law enforcement, there's a lot of laws on the books that people won't obey no matter what. 300 million registered guns in the United States. That doesn't include all the illegal ones. The reality is gun control is not going to be the answer alone. You have to look at mental health and getting others involved who recognize the problems and bringing it forward to law enforcement.
Mark, one of your senators, Marco Rubio, the Republican senator representing you here in D.C., I want to play a bit of what he had to say about trying to find this balance here with gun rights and gun control. Here's what he said on the Senate floor.
And so even as we recognize that the Second Amendment gives Americans the right to bear arms and to protect themselves, a right that I strongly support and will continue to support, we must also recognize that that same Constitution places upon this government an obligation to ensure domestic tranquility and promote general welfare.
I mean, Mark, that sounds like a sensible, fair place to start this conversation. So how does that balance get achieved?
Well, it's interesting that they always bring up the Second Amendment, and we are not disputing the Second Amendment. Many of my friends who belong to the NRA, who have handguns, are saying now that something has to be done with assault weapons. Let's just use the two words, assault weapons. In the state of Florida, for example, you have a 3-day waiting period to buy a handgun. But to buy an assault weapon, you can go in and a few minutes later come out after a background check with no waiting period and buy an assault weapon. So we're distinguishing assault weapons from handguns. The topic today is let's focus in on assault weapons and let's start banning them and stopping allow teenagers from buying them.
And John, I want to bring you in here because I know that for a lot of people, they hear the word assault weapon and it's confusing to them. They don't exactly understand what happens there. We're not talking about machine guns or things that have automatic fire. They do have cosmetic differences and they show up a lot in these crimes, John. So what of what Mark has suggested?
Well, these weapons do show up quite a bit, but just as often as not, handguns show up. Look at the Jared Loeffner situation with the Gabrielle Gifford shooting. That individual was using a handgun, yet was ever able to fire 32 rounds in just 11 seconds, killing 6 people. That's why I think the problem goes far beyond just a discussion of guns. It goes to mental health and also people learning how to protect themselves and knowing what to do in these situations.
John and Mark, we thank you both for having this honest conversation about where we go. We just began this conversation. It will last a long time, and it continues in this country. Thank you both for lending your voices.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon.